Welcome to Best Picture This, where it is always Oscar season. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brian. In this show, we reevaluate every Best Picture nominee from the 21st century and decide whether to keep it or kick it from its Oscar pedestal.
But today we get to do a lot more than just keep and kick, Brian. We get to rank, we get to recap, and you know my favorite, we get to renounce.
We've all been waiting for the renunciation list.
I love to renounce and I love to replace, so that's why I look forward to these year in review episodes.
We don't just think we're smarter than the Oscars.
No, I think we
actually
legitimately are.
We
Yeah,
actually
that's not
are.
in question. So in 2003, the Oscars, let's go over their nominees. For Best Picture, were Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, Lost in Translation, Mystic River, Seabiscuit, and the year's big winner, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
11 Oscars
11 big ones.
for Peter Jackson and company. Coming up in this finale episode for 2003, we will first reorder the Oscars top 5. They don't give them in order, but
We do.
We'll put them in order for them. Then we'll ask each other one question designed to answer once and for all, which is the lesser of two evils. We will talk trivia. We will give a grand reveal, what we've all been waiting for, the personal top 5s of 2003. We'll do some more Oscar kicks, and then should we do hot takes to conclude? Or should we go
I thought
golden?
about this too a lot last night, but I think probably stick with the golden takes.
Let's do golden. So, Mike, how would you reorder the top 5?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I don't think that there's been one time on this show that you've said the lesser of two weevils or that's come up and I haven't laughed. It's funny every time.
It doesn't ever get old.
But my 5 from the bottom up, my number 5, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
Oh, more than Seabiscuit? Wow.
You know what?
That's a harsh
I struggled
kick.
with it a bit, and I did wonder, am I just trolling with this, putting The Lord of the Rings under Seabiscuit, because Seabiscuit is my number 4, but I thought, when I watched Seabiscuit, I was thinking, this is fine. I wasn't impressed, but I wasn't really actively disliking it.
Did you watch the extended Seabiscuit?
I should
Because
have.
mine was 4 hours long.
4 hours and 10 minutes. But with Return of the King, there were times where I was physically upset. So I had to put it as my number 5.
Wow.
Number 3, Master and Commander, then Lost in Translation, and my number 1 is Mystic River.
Mystic River. Very good. My number 5 is Seabiscuit, and Lord of the Rings number 4. And I will say that my top 3, I had a lot of debate on, but I finally settled with Mystic River number 3, Lost in Translation 2, and Master and Commander number 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
So Mystic River and Master and Commander, or Lost in Translation, do you feel like there was a big gap between any of those?
There really wasn't. But there are others that are in that same category. I think we'll get into it more when I get to the golden takes, because deciding which one to keep and kick from my own personal list, we agonize over this.
We do.
We take this more seriously than
our jobs,
most
our
important.
families.
In certain moments, maybe you're right. So deciding which of two movies to kick, like you like to think that, well, this is just art. We're supposed to just, judge it on its own merit, and it's not like a competition with something else, but ultimately you do have to choose which one you would take on the desert island and which one you wouldn't.
Which ones disappear forever from cinema history.
Exactly. Renunciation. So do you want, we'll get to I want to hear more explanation of why you picked which ones you did, but we'll probably get to that once we do the personal top 5s.
Yeah, I think so.
So the question, we are asking the question. Yeah, we are. I'll go first with my question. The script says you're supposed to say, here's my question.
Mess that up? Okay, so I was waiting for you for no reason,
botched
so that was my fault. All right.
But it's another fun outtake.
Sure.
We won't cut that.
No, we'll leave everything in.
So, Lord of the Rings suffers in part because it's trying to cram hundreds of pages into 3 hours, I think. So my question is, because this was in 2003 that this third one came out, do you think that the resurgence of the miniseries format will mean that we won't really have that problem in the future?
The resurgence of the miniseries format.
Yeah,
so you're saying if Lord of the Rings were a TV show instead
why
of...
Why not make it 10 episodes or 12 episodes? No one would complain about that. They would understand it's like a 1 year, season essentially.
Yeah.
So would that if you broke it up and maybe had, different little a mini arc each time, you think that would have been better, and maybe we're not going to have this problem with other long form storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see it, and I think that maybe the fact that Lord of the Rings is going into TV form through Amazon Prime for this new series, and that's kind of them realizing that, if we do have this story to tell and we want to create this vast, expansive universe, that the way to do that is over the course of episodes where we can focus on just one clan, one territory per episode.
If there's anything we've learned from this show so far, it's that Lord of the Rings could use a reboot.
Yeah, well, The Hobbit, have you seen the Hobbit movies?
I have them in my house, but I have not watched any of the three.
Yeah, I hate to say it because I do consider myself a Lord of the Rings fan, weirdly enough, but I
You just kicked it over below Seabiscuit, and you say you're a Lord of the Rings fan?
And I didn't even see the second two Hobbit movies.
I think you're not
the first.
a Lord of the Rings fan.
But I love the first one, and the second one I think is great. Mm-hmm. But the third one really rubbed me the wrong way, and just the Hobbit movies just felt like more of the stuff that I didn't like so much from Return of the King, and those long action sequences I think were a big part of that.
So I should do the classic Brian McMillan watches 30 minutes per day of The Hobbit. Would that be better?
God,
try to cram it all. It would
still take you a lot of days though, because those movies are long also.
Or should I just binge the whole movie?
Whatever you do, don't invite me over when you do it. That's all I ask.
All right.
But yeah, I do think that the TV format is good for things like this. Mm-hmm. TV has gotten very, very good, in recent, I guess, decades now, not years. But there's something about the cinema experience and the theater experience that I wouldn't want to lose. Mm-hmm. And I am hesitant saying, like, if you have a big story to tell, just put it into TV, because it almost seems like, I don't know, that's a way to stretch everything out rather than trying to edit into, an epic. If you have 5 hours of things, can you scale it down to 3.5, and make it into an epic movie rather than a 6-part miniseries? I think I'd prefer that.
It would be interesting to review this. I don't know if I brought this up before, but to look back over the years and see which original screenplays versus adapted, when it's adapted from a longer work that doesn't just fit into 2 hours easily. Mm-hmm. How often are the best originals actually more effective than the best adapteds? I mean, Mystic River was adapted from a novel, but I didn't necessarily feel like it must have been cramming, even though I haven't read the novel, but I haven't read all the Lord of the Rings either. So, yeah. But it'd be interesting to see a script that is written for the screen. It fits the format better, you would think. Mm-hmm. I find that there are times when it's adapted that there are sometimes sort of like repeated scenes that might seem more natural in a novel than they would in a movie, because it's only like a few minutes later and then they're kind of in this same setting again. I'll have to think more about that and do some analysis.
Yeah. Are you the book's always better person?
I am not.
Good. If you were, I was going to end the episode right here and there. So my question to you, right now we're ending 2003. This is the 4th year that we've been doing these. Mm-hmm. So has your approach changed at all in the 4 movie years that we've done, that we've covered?
Is it the 4th year or the 5th year?
99, 2000, 2001, 2003. 4 years.
2002.
Did I skip 2002?
I think you did. Oh. 99, 0, 1, 2, 3. This is the 5th. Okay. Inclusive. 5th year. So what was the question again? I was distracted by your math.
My math was... I'm a liberal arts guy, Brian. You know this. So has your approach changed at all in terms of how you rank movies, what you're looking for in them, what you like and dislike?
I've been agonizing over this. 30 minutes ago, I changed one out of my top 5.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the deciding factor? What swayed you?
Well, this is kind of what my golden take is. So I'm just going to do my golden take.
Okay.
Right now, early. I think that I realized that rewatchability is a bigger deal than I was probably thinking in the 2000 range.
Okay.
You said last time that the high highs is a really big deal. And I was thinking about that kind of rule as I was going through my list here. Mystic River had one of the highest highs of the year for me. That like last scene with the sort of, I keep thinking of it as the Lady Macbeth scene.
Yeah.
We keep bringing that up. That was one of the highest highs of the year, but it ended up being 3rd on my my reordering of the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in part because maybe it's not the one that I'm going to go reach for, soon. There are some movies that I watch and I feel like, yeah, I really liked it, but I'm content to not necessarily watch it again anytime real soon. So rewatchability, this idea of what are you stuck with on the desert island with? I think the greatest art rewards multiple viewings, multiple readings, and you get something different out of it every time or whatever, because the ideas have some complexity to them maybe, or sometimes it might be kind of confusing, but you still like it. That happens to me a lot. I kind of enjoy that because it's kind of like a challenge in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So rewatchability, what are you stuck on the desert island with? It changed one of my movies to go into my top 5 and kicked another one out of it.
I could see it because I guess that's similar to that question I had about Master and Commander the first time, where I'd seen it before we did this series, and I felt like, I have to watch that again. I remember that movie being boring, but then I looked back in my Letterboxd and I 4-starred it. I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And even now, I watched it for a second time. I liked it just as much the second time, but in my brain, I still have that feeling of like,
don't really want to watch it.
I don't need to watch it again.
That I felt, that's kind of a weird. That's where it's totally personal thing, right? I mean, one movie you might be excited to watch another time, and another one you wouldn't. So I think that there's more analysis or figuring out that I could do why it belongs on the desert island, but that was one factor.
I realized too that kind of talking about these movies, writing about them, having a conversation about them, that sort of that brings out a lot of truth in your experience also, because you could the credits could roll on a movie and you can think that you have a pretty firm idea of what you thought about it. But then when you sit down, you really start working through some themes like, well, why did I like that scene? Why didn't I like that other scene? All of a sudden you start expanding, and you have a much more dynamic idea of what the director was trying to say, what stands out in the movie and why. And maybe that sort of emboldens your golden takes.
It goldifies it. So I feel like one thing that has been more difficult and almost kind of like, it doesn't ruin the movie experience, but trying to come up with the rule of why I like it or why I don't, so that I can kind of guide future, less agonizing in future years. I think that is often a fool's errand, because they are so different. And I can't say like, well, this one had the highest high, therefore it's the best, or I might break my desert island rule, next year too. But it's okay that each year it kind of adjusts, I guess.
And you can't break it down into an equation and pretend that it's math, because these are sort of emotional decisions, and we're talking about art.
Liberal arts majors.
We don't do all these numbers games. But for me, when I was thinking about this, I feel like I've always valued surprise in movies. Those high highs, the movie going in directions I didn't anticipate. I've never really been a fan of biopics, and the idea of a quote prestige picture has always annoyed me. And I feel like over the course of these 5 years, all of those things have gotten sort of stronger, and they've made me want to make more of a conscious effort to sort of make sure that these lists are personalized. Make sure that I'm not picking movies that I feel like I should be picking, that I'm picking movies that have legitimately made the biggest impact on my life, whether or not it's an intellectual impact or otherwise. I don't think that it has to always be intellectual or academic.
Something else, though, that I think is what I keep trying to guard against is I like seeing top lists of everything practically. And I look at top music lists a lot every year, top songs, top albums from different people. And some critics end up putting a song that's in their top 10. And it's mostly because they want other people to listen to it. And that it's not like they legitimately thought this was the number 2 song that was made, the best second best song made that year. They put in sometimes weird things that no one really knows that much about, and to mix it in, and it's mostly an advocacy thing. So I keep trying to also not just fall into that, because if a movie's great and everybody else thinks it's great, it's okay for me to also think it's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to just like be a contrarian for the sake of that.
Yeah, but I guess in a way the lists are sort of about discovery, where you're kind of planting your flag in different movies and saying,
It
like,
can
this
be,
one's
yeah.
for me. But also I think that a big part of the fun about these is, why would somebody pick a certain movie as their number one or their number two? And you learn about the person through that process and what they have to say about that, rather than just the Academy says that these are the 5 best, so they must be at least in the top 10, which for my experience, that hasn't been the case.
Well, this is why when you meet somebody, or when I meet somebody, I'm often curious, like, what kind of movies do you like? You know, sounds very teenagery to ask that question, but I think it does kind of say, it helps you get to know somebody quickly. Like, well, I love this movie, I don't like that movie.
Yeah, and then if they like bad ones, you dismiss that person altogether,
you kind of just
and you move on. Yeah.
Slowly turn away and don't say anything.
All right, so your question.
I already asked my question.
You already. I feel like I've done this a lot.
We both asked our questions.
All right, we're moving on.
Have we not? Trivia time before we get to the grand reveal. I really enjoyed Something's Gotta Give.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I didn't put it in my top 5.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. But I thought, you know what? I think Diane Keaton deserves a little bit of... I want to read a little more about Diane Keaton, because she was really great in the movie. Way over the top crying scene when she breaks up. It was almost like hard to watch when she's just like comically crying too much. But I really love Diane Keaton. So I did a little reading about her. So here's a couple trivia items about her. Diane Keaton studied drama at Santa Ana College before dropping out, which that's awesome. Yeah. Way to drop out, Diane. Diane Keaton in the title role of Annie Hall for 1977 was written for her by Woody Allen. I didn't realize that. But her real last name is actually Hall, and her nickname is Annie. So I did not know that. So she also has directed some things, and she actually directed an episode of Twin Peaks.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We haven't revisited David Lynch since our Mulholland Drive. He's come up a few times here and there, but are we coming up on a David Lynch movie that we're going to watch?
Maybe. Well, Fire Walk with Me, I think, was in the 90s, the late 90s. Inland Empire would probably be the next one after Mulholland Drive, but that I think is later, like 2008-ish.
Okay,
maybe.
One more thing about Diane Keaton. So she changed her name to... she was like in a acting troupe. Someone else was named Diane Hall, so she just picked Diane Keaton. There's another actor in the same acting group, or he heard about this. His name was Michael Douglas, but Michael Douglas can't be. You can't go in Hollywood being Michael Douglas, because there's already a Michael Douglas. Like, I like Keaton. I heard about Diane Keaton, so he changed his name to Michael Keaton.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Michael Keaton. He stole his name. He stole his fake name from Diane Keaton's fake name.
That's amazing.
I know, right? I also thought it would be interesting to look up Pirates of the Caribbean. So this is the first Disney movie that was rated PG-13. Thought that was interesting.
Okay.
The studio thought, because there were some scenes that they thought would be too intense for a 5-year-old, which I totally agree with, because my 6-year-old was freaked out. But the studio was confident enough to add The Curse of the Black Pearl, because they figured that there would be sequels made.
Just like Master and Commander, though.
Yeah,
that's like the kiss
that
of death.
That didn't work. But Gore Verbinski, who directed it, he disliked the new title because it's actually Aztec gold that's cursed, not the ship. So he requested that the title of the movie be unreadable on the poster.
Wow.
I guess you have to go real close to see it when he's on the poster, because if you're going to do that, just change the name.
Yeah.
Just change the name. All right, so top 5s.
It's the big one.
The big reveal. So I'll go first, because I like the suspense of yours. So here are my top 5. First off, I watched 22 movies for 2003. And I did not see a few key movies, so I have to get that.
I missed a couple.
Yeah.
Also,
so I wanted to watch 21 Grams. Didn't get to that. I couldn't find a filter. Kill Bill, no filter. Wanted to watch that.
Shame.
City of God, same thing. I also did not watch Owning Mahoney, and I didn't realize it was Philip Seymour Hoffman. So I was kind of disappointed that I didn't discover that in time to watch it. Didn't see Whale Rider, which I didn't really care that much about, but it did make a lot of people's lists. So, a lot of movies were close. School of Rock was close. Matrix Reloaded, I really enjoyed. 28 Days Later, I thought so many good things about. These are probably in your top 5, so I just want to throw them out there that they were close for me. A movie that surprised me that I thought was basically just as good as School of Rock was Bruce Almighty.
Wow.
And Jennifer Aniston is super good in the movie.
Wait, is that your number 5?
No, it is not. Here are my top 5. Drum roll.
Okay.
Number 5 is Lost in Translation. We did a whole episode about it.
We did.
So maybe we don't need to say a whole lot more. But I feel sort of at home in that movie, and it's a desert island kind of experience. I didn't love it as much as I did the first time when I watched it this time, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it, and I like it. So I'm going with that, number 5. Number 4 is the movie that I swapped out last minute.
Okay.
And that's American Splendor.
Ah, nice.
I'm including it in my top 5.
So wait, it was out.
It was
out. And then
out.
you put it in as 4, not 5.
I did.
Interesting.
I did.
Okay. So what was
it
4?
shows the nonsensical nature of these lists in some ways.
Yeah.
But it was going to be in America at number 4.
Okay.
And I thought, I had a really great emotional response to that movie. I really loved Samantha Morton. She was nominated for Best Actress, and I thought she was just fantastic. The acting all around was great. The kids were really funny, believable, and very touching. And I thought that there was a lot of pretty bold visuals throughout the movie. But if I just said which movie I'm most excited to see again, I think American Splendor has this interesting intellectual complexity to it that makes me want to see that more on a rewatch than I would in America. This idea of ordinary life is pretty complex stuff. The line. I love Paul Giamatti. And I love movies that are sort of commenting about the form. And this one does that in such an original, strange, and wonderful way that it makes it a more memorable movie for me. Takes big chances. It's funny in a lot of surprising ways. So that's number 4 for me. Number 3 is Monster. And it could have been higher. If not for, it's not really the world that I'm dying to go be in all the time, right? But Charlize Theron is so incredible in this movie. It's one of the best of the decade acting performances, in my opinion, not just of the year. And I love her as an actress anyway. So we did an episode about Monster, as we did American Splendor and Lost in Translation. So you can go check those episodes out. But that's my number 3. Number 2 is my surprise throw-in, and that is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wow. Okay. Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Number 1 is Master and Commander for me.
I want to talk about Pirates. Kind of a nautical kick.
Quite a bit. Those two, I realize those are like the 2 swashbucklingest movies of the year. Mm-hmm. Pirates of the Caribbean, I almost didn't watch because I'd seen it before, but it had been a long time, probably since almost 2003 since I'd seen it. That's when I fell in love with Keira Knightley. And Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow. You'd look at the past 30 years and you try to think of who are the enduring, iconic characters in movie history in that past, say, 25, 30 years. He's one of them. It's interesting to have that character and Charlize Theron. Johnny Depp was nominated for Best Actor in this movie, which is also kind of interesting because it's a pretty weird role to get nominated for, in my opinion. But as far as like creating this original, being in a movie that was based on a Disneyland ride, right? Talk about pulling something that is like so funny and original and creative out of something like that. And, he based it on like, a weird Keith Richards impersonation sort of. But when just the tone is so strange this kind of like confidence but silliness, and the outsmarting of everybody, right? He's like, the curse is going to kill everybody, but yet he lets himself be cursed just to have this like trickery. Anyway, the plot is so twisty and turny that I realized, you know what?
How did you
I'm
go
gonna
this
with
long
Pirates of the
without
Caribbean.
ever seeing Pirates of the Caribbean?
I did. I saw it in like 03-ish.
Oh, okay.
I did see it that one time, but I kind of like, I saw the second one and I kind
Second
of
one's brutal.
didn't want to see any of the other ones.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same stuff over and over again and gets more and more outlandish. But yeah, Johnny Depp in that first one, that's kind of where that character is born. And I think he deserves a whole lot of credit for it. And it makes it very memorable. And Desert Island, Pirates of the Caribbean, they go well together.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And also you can watch one when you're feeling happy and jaunty. And then when you're feeling a little more highbrow, you pop in Master and Commander.
Oh,
and
the highest of the brows.
Highbrow, high seas.
But yeah, with Master and Commander, we talked about this. I was very high on it when we did that episode, and I think that Paul Bettany is kind of like the heart of that movie. His relationship with Russell Crowe's character is great, but also his like, he's the one who's the conscience of the movie. He's criticizing Russell Crowe just doing abandoning all the safety of the crew. But yet Paul Bettany also has this like scientific, Darwinian sense of discovery.
Yeah.
That I just loved all those scenes. And that may be, again, like a personal, I've always been interested in studying all that kind of stuff. So that could be honestly one of the reasons why it stands out to me that much.
I'm with you on that though, because that is Russell Crowe's movie, but I don't think it works without Paul Bettany working as the foil. Russell Crowe's kind of the heart, Bettany's sort of the head, and that's what makes the whole thing sort of click into place.
But Russell Crowe I think he's at his best in that movie, even though I did like Beautiful Mind, and I think he's great in The Insider and everything, and great in Gladiator. But I feel like this is where he feels like actually himself. He's not trying to play, this other kind of like strange mental case.
Yeah.
It feels like you're hanging out with Russell Crowe, the guy, in this movie,
like
and
he just should have been born in that time.
He's
wearing
such
those
like a
clothes.
fun person, and the idea of sitting around the table, you feel like you can sit around the table with Russell Crowe in that movie, and that's what it would really be like.
Especially if he has more of those dad jokes.
Oh yeah,
because then I'm in. So I have to say that I am very, very glad that you didn't put In America in your top 5, because I've been sort of holding off talking to you about it just because if you were going to put it in your top 5,
you didn't want to crush it.
I would have roasted you if you put it in your top 5.
Would you really?
I saw it.
I would reject your roasting because I did like that movie. So there.
I saw it years and years ago.
Yeah.
It was probably around 06. And I really, really liked it. On Letterboxd, I put it as a 4.5. So I was kind of looking forward to watching it this time.
Yeah.
And I was just shocked at how much of a different experience I had with it this time around. I just found it phony and super manipulative. I just thought that it did a lot of emotional tricks to try to jerk those tears.
The thing within America, though, because I read a review of it that said the opposite of what you just said, that it goes into that territory but manages to stay above it. And I think it also manages to stay above it. But there are a few moments where I agree with you that it kind of, it's same to me. There's a little bit of this kind of it borders into the sentimentality where it's trying to get a little more out of it than it seems it deserved. But I feel like a little bit that's why I ended up not including Mystic River on this. Even though it has high highs and there's this like really cool kind of like darkness throughout, there is some of that feels like Oscar baity to me, and it threw me out of the groove just enough that I didn't put it in there. Although it's not like it's far behind Lost in Translation. I mean, on a different day I could possibly put it in there and I wouldn't mind watching it again, but that's kind of where it didn't quite hit my top 5 for me.
And I think the difference is Mystic River is sort of honest up front that it is genre and a melodrama. And In America, it tries to sell you on these are real people that we are supposed to care about, but it just forces them to suffer the whole movie long and then kicks them when they're down over and over and over again. It gives us this neighbor character who seems like a total psychopath for the first couple of minutes, and then he's got a heart of gold, and then we have to watch him die. It's just like one thing after another. I just felt like that movie was just like sucker punching me over and over again toward the end.
It made me respect it more, though, the fact that it was like
based off of Sheridan's
autobiographical.
real life.
Yeah. So that kind of made me feel like, it's pretty hard to take your life experience and turn it into something really moving for everybody else. And I think it was mostly successful, but
I mean, we don't want to spend too much time on this because this is not an In America episode, but it's based off of real life, and there's definitely craft there. But I almost feel like the craft works against it because Sheridan does know how these narratives work. He knows how to pay off suffering, in the first act, and then give us that moment in the third act that makes it all seem worth it somehow. But maybe there were just too many of those moments where it didn't feel authentic to me. But my 5.
Your top 5.
My top 5. Number 5, 28 Days Later. It's the best horror movie of the year.
Yep.
I love the look and the feel, and it brought zombies back. What else do I need to say?
I agree. Loved it.
I guess since you did a little bit of an honorable mentions thing at the front.
Yeah, tell me some honorable mentions. I want to hear some.
American Splendor is not going to make my list, and The Matrix Reloaded is not going to make my list.
What?
Those were the ones that were on the cusp. I really wanted them in there, but I
figured for sure Reloaded gets on your list.
Reloaded and 28 Days Later were really going back and forth for this last spot. And I guess where I came to it was, I think that maybe Reloaded, the reasons that I like it are a little bit more personal. I like that the pacing.
What's wrong with personal?
No, but I mean,
I need to play a clip of a previous episode. That's enough.
I see the pacing as a problem in that movie. I kind of like that it goes from very dense exposition to crazy action because it's weird. I like that it's sort of ambitious and they're trying to fit so much in it. But I could also see 100% why somebody would watch that movie and think like, what are we talking about now? What is this guy saying in the architect room, with all these TVs around, throwing around big words? It just seems like they're trying to do a lot with that. And I like it, but I could see that maybe it wouldn't work for other people. And I get it. Number 4, School of Rock, another personal pick. But I mean, come on. I said in our episode with School of Rock that this informed my vocabulary growing up, and my friends.
You promised that School of Rock would be on, so
yeah. I mean, if these picks are supposed to symbolize the only 5 movies of the year that we are keeping, and the rest disappear, I can't live without School of Rock. It's coming with me. It's my number 4. Number 3 is Mystic River. Movie full of contradictions and melodrama, like I said, and I couldn't get it out of my head for weeks. I just think that it's like great middle brow drama. It's accessible, but it's also got meat there to chew on if you want. So it's kind of right in the middle there where
definitely
it's kind of a great.
It's another one where there's probably some of it where just like Monster, maybe in some ways, it's certainly in many ways superior movie to Pirates of the Caribbean. But there's something about like, which world am I excited to go back into? I'm a little more excited to go into the Pirates world.
All right. You're speaking your truth, Brian.
I am.
That's
I'm
what this is
speaking my
all
truth.
about. I like that Mystic River is kind of shiny and gritty at the same time. I love that mix. My number 2 is Monster. I think that Monster does pretty much everything that Mystic River does, except for $22 million less than Mystic River. And
wait.
That
You're giving them credit?
No. That's not the reason why it's over. I love Theron's performance in this.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's legendary. And I don't think that, I can't get rid of that for one thing, but I also just love how it's so many things at once. It's this super focused character study, and it's this broad social justice essay almost. And that takes some serious chops to do, especially given the fact that it is so dark, but it feels fun to watch. But I mean, you could write a thesis about this movie if you wanted to, and sort of base it on the fact that morality is impossibly complex and there is no right and wrong. And Mystic River, it feels like it's more complicated, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're still talking about bad guys doing bad things, and Monster, I think, transcends that conversation a little bit.
Number 1.
My number 1 is Kill Bill.
That's what I was thinking it would be.
So we didn't cover Kill Bill.
Nope.
And
tell me why you love Kill
I
Bill.
wish we would have covered it, because when I saw this for the first time, I was 16 years old, and I'd never seen anything more creative, or crazy, I think, than this movie. There's insane blood spray. I saw this one billboard that they made for this movie where Uma Thurman is holding a sword in the corner, and the entire billboard is white, and there's blood spraying out of her sword, and it kind of splashes through the billboard. But then they planted like fake cars in the street, and the fake blood is going onto the street over the cars, and it's like how big and ridiculous that is. It is a perfect encapsulation of what this movie is and what it's trying to do. It's like showy camera showy camera movements, music pretty much wall to wall. And it's just like a shameless revenge movie with high style. I love that about it then. Rewatching it now, I loved it now.
So you like shamelessness.
100%, because there's no half measures in this movie. Tarantino set out to like make a sensory blast of a movie. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't try to fill it with like, a whole lot of subtext. It doesn't have a lot of metaphors in it.
It's reloaded without the big words.
It's reloaded without the big words and without the CGI, at least without, the same sort of level of CGI anyway. But especially the fact that he made this after Jackie Brown, which is like the polar opposite movie in every single way. It's very sort of subtle and slow, and Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, these are movies about like tough guys talking, and this is just it's a statement, in the other way, where instead of talking, it's action, instead of inaction, it's action.
What you're telling me, because again, I have not seen Kill Bill, although Kill Bill 2 is on my list for the next year.
It's weird. You're going to watch that after not watching the first one.
Well, what's interesting, what I keep thinking about as you're talking about this is, what's the most recent one? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to watching that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I've seen it before and I really enjoyed it, but it's a weird movie where like the first 2 hours feel like they're its own thing. You've seen To Kill Once Upon a Time, right?
Yeah, I have.
So, and then there's like this almost like addendum, this like epilogue, where the Hollywood stars who are, capitalizing on Hollywood violence, they're going to be punished. And yet they end up winning with, violence beating more violence. And it just makes me kind of wonder what Tarantino's trying to say about Hollywood violence with Kill Bill. It's sort of like what you're describing sounds like it's kind of like, is it like an homage to Hollywood violence?
Oh yeah. It's an homage to pulpy cinema, to Hong Kong cinema, to exploitation movies in a way, except it's modernized. Everything is elevated to like the nth degree. There's a chunk of this movie that's in anime. It's just a cartoon, never explained. They have a whole backstory, and that's the chunk of the movie for like 15 minutes. There's a chunk that's in black and white, and then it flashes back into color. Crazy cinematography, crazy style, and the style is the substance in something like that. But on a deeper level, this School of Rock, we've talked about like Fight Club and Blair Witch in '99. They've been a part of my life, like my entire adult life. These movies have been a part of it in some profound way. So I think that looking back, that they kind of opened my mind to different styles of art. They kind of helped mold my tastes in a way. And you don't need to understand all of the Hong Kong cinema references that Tarantino's mining from here to get what he's doing. But I think that sort of the brilliance of it is, especially of discovering this movie at a certain age, is like, if you love Tarantino, then you want to find out like, well, okay, what are these references? Where's this stuff coming from? So I want to find out the movies and the filmmakers that Tarantino loves. And so that becomes a gateway that just feeds itself, in a cycle. And then it's like 18 years later and you have a podcast and you rank every movie on Letterboxd and you write stuff about it. It's like, it's fueling the obsession. So when I'm looking back, I kind of feel like this movie is a celebration of all the stylistic flourishes that got Tarantino into movies in the first place. And I think it had a similar effect on me as a teenager. So looking at this ranking of my top 5 for the year and saying, well, maybe this shouldn't be number 1 because it's not very deep. That's just such a backwards way of evaluating what's important to you. I just couldn't do it. This is full stop my most favorite movie of the year. After I watched it, I was like so hyped. I haven't seen it for years, and I was so happy that I loved it as much as I did back in the day. And it's not going anywhere.
It's
my hard number one.
Kill Bill, that comfort movie, that reminds you of childhood.
Yeah. In a way, yeah, it definitely should.
Very good. So, we have the reveal has been revealed. Should we talk about other Oscar kicks?
Oh yeah. I've got lots of them.
You got some? All right, let's hear some.
All right, so Best Actor, if Johnny Depp can get nominated for Captain Jack Sparrow, Jack Black can get nominated for Best Actor.
So who do you kick?
I would kick Jude Law in Cold Mountain, and I would kick Ben Kingsley in House of Sand and Fog.
Did you watch House of Sand and Fog?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you didn't like it?
No, I wouldn't invest your time in that.
I did. I liked it, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boy.
There's a moment in House of Sand and Fog where Ben Kingsley's character gives this prayer that I thought was a really intense and very believable moment. However, yeah, I would I don't know.
I think I would keep Sean Penn as my best in that category, but Jack Black should be recognized, I think.
Jude Law definitely could get kicked for there, in my opinion.
Best Supporting Actor, I would kick, I'm going to butcher his name, Digimon Hansu in America. And I would slot in Paul Bettany from Master and Commander. We've talked about that. Yeah. And I like Tim Robbins in Mystic River, but I would actually give this award to Benicio del Toro in 21 Grams. He is so good.
Tim Robbins feels a little over the top in the movie.
Definitely soapy.
Yep.
Best Adapted Screenplay, I've said before, Lord of the Rings. The screenplay is not what makes these movies memorable. It's the special effects, it's the direction, not the script. So that is out of there. In its place, I would make my winner for Best Adapted Screenplay American Splendor, Shari Springer and Robert Pulcini. You hit on all the reasons why. It's so inventive and it comments on the form in a way that's unexpected. And if you're just going to give points for creativity, if all of that stuff is in the script, come on.
And the lines are great. Like, I mean, they're coming from Harvey Picar's work probably, but there's so many like profound little nuggets that's one thing that I look for. Like what are the pithy aphorisms that you're going to remember? And that one's full of them. So
yeah, I kicked Lost in Translation from my big top 5, but I think it definitely deserves a spot in cinematography. To make room, kick Cold Mountain. I'd also kick Seabiscuit. Surprise, surprise. But my clear winner with this is Kill Bill. All I've talked about is the style and the camera movements and the colors. I think that the biggest oversight of the Oscars is the fact that Kill Bill wasn't at least nominated for cinematography. Crazy.
You think it should have been director?
Well, director, that's another one that I really went back and forth with, because I only had one slot open because I kicked Peter Jackson. Because Lord of the Rings, it's an accomplishment. I get it, but these movies could use some editing. I think we could agree. So to give the directing award to him seems a little bit iffy. So I went back and forth between American Splendor and Kill Bill with direction. But the fact that all of that stuff sort of is in the script with American Splendor, I went with Kill Bill here. But I actually was torn on the winner, and part of me part of me just wants to give it to Peter Weir for Master and Commander, because if there was another category where I would give Master and Commander an award, it would be cinematography. And if Kill Bill wasn't made this year, it would have gone home with some gold. So maybe give him a directing consolation prize.
That is one thing that I think we've talked before, like what can movies do that other art forms can't? And it's got Master and Commander has great visuals. The scenes, like the silhouettes, the guys going up the ropes.
I can picture it sharply in my mind right now.
The music is so great in Master and Commander, with their actual classical music playing in their little quarters. The acting is fantastic. The writing is great. It's just it has everything, and they did some really crazy stuff with the sound for that movie also. That's one thing I think is one of the reasons why it's such a standout. So for me, I would kick Renee Zellweger off the supporting actress pedestal. It's kind of a little also over the top. It's just not my favorite kind of style of acting. Cold Mountain had so many problems with the movie in general. Though a lot of people seem to love it. But I would kick her off, and I would put Jennifer Aniston from Bruce Almighty into this movie.
Nice. Okay.
Have you seen this in a while? I don't know.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, but she has these scenes where she's kind of like the victim of Jim Carrey's like craziness, And you're just so heartbroken for her in this movie, and I think she pulls it off super, super well. I will also kick Seabiscuit from cinematography, and I would think about In America for cinematography, and 28 Days Later, just because of the innovation with the digital camera work.
That's a good point.
That was pretty pretty arresting. Like the scenes of walking through London and everything was quite remarkable. I would also kick Peter Jackson for Best Director, and I would do Sofia Coppola as a winner. She had a limited script that she wrote, so it's her own fault that it was a limited script. But the point is, it wasn't just let's do what the writer said. She had to get improvisation from, admittedly, a genius in Bill Murray, but she had to figure out what to use and what not to use and things like that. And there's so much natural material gathered from shots around the city that weren't even necessarily scripted out and planned, that I think that's kind of a very impressive directing feat, to turn almost like a quasi-documentary approach to going to just gathering natural stuff and turning it into something that turned out as good as Lost in Translation. And just that relationship, that chemistry on screen, she insisted on getting the cast that she was going to have. She gave it to Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson without even getting other people to try out or anything. She knew what she wanted. She had the vision and she pulled it off. To me, that's the best directing of the year. Also, James Horner was nominated, or he won, for House of Sand and Fog. I think he was nominated. But Howard Shore won for Lord of the Rings. But I don't know. I don't really get into Danny Elfman or James Horner. They seem very predictable and just strings and everything. I would give it to Pirates of the Caribbean for the score. I mean, talk about an iconic score. It was an interesting story. Klaus Badelt and Hans Zimmer were kind of like the key guys who wrote that. But there were 15 composers who were involved, and they had to turn it around really quickly. And the accomplishment of that is, I think, tremendous. So I think that should have got nominated and probably won over the other ones.
Let me give you my golden take.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to make it quick. This is the worst movie year we've done so far.
Really?
That's my golden take. In another year, School of Rock and 28 Days Later could have easily been edged out, I think.
Yeah.
But I just didn't feel compelled to put anything else above them. Didn't feel strongly enough. Their personal picks, I definitely do not see them as absolutes. And a lot of other years hasn't really felt that way. And I think that's because what we're dealing with here, Brian, is a year with no masterpieces. And I looked back, 99, masterpiece.
Russell Crowe said the Master and Commander is a masterpiece.
He did say that on Twitter. So, but 99, you got The Matrix, Fight Club, Blair Witch, Stone Cold.
Yep.
Sixth Sense, maybe. That's maybe 4. 2000, American Psycho, Crouching Tiger. Unbreakable? I don't know.
That was my number 1.
So maybe 3. Maybe 3 there. 01, you have Mulholland Drive, Fellowship of the Ring, In the Bedroom. 3, 02, Punch Drunk Love. The Pianist I wouldn't call, but if you want to, then
it's
go
up
ahead.
there for me. But yeah, Punch Drunk Love, clearly.
I think in that group, you could easily find, even if you don't agree with all of those that I listed, you could easily find 3 or at least 1 per year that you would call a stone cold masterpiece. I don't think
Kill Bill's not a masterpiece?
I thought about it.
You just were praising it.
I love it. But I was thinking about what to me defines a masterpiece, and I think that it's sort of taking familiar feelings and making us experience them in unfamiliar ways. If you think about the dream logic of Mulholland Drive, or you think about how sort of abstract and intimate Punch Drunk Love feels at the same time. Fellowship is doing something completely new. The Matrix is doing something completely new. Fight Club is very divisive at the time. But Kill Bill is working off of a lot of touchstones that were already there. It's just sort of elevating them, modernizing them. So I love Kill Bill, but I'm not sure that I'm willing to say that it's a 100% masterpiece.
I think as far as originality, I think that American Splendor is pretty remarkable for originality. But yeah, a lot of the other ones you don't necessarily get that feeling. I think there's a little bit of some kind of a genius and originality in Lost in Translation, but yeah, I can see that. When I was first looking at the 03 list, I was like, I don't think I need to get as many in this time around, and
yeah,
all good. Well, I already did my golden take about the The Desert Island. So we'll move on. The next episode, we're going to visit another biopic. Ray.
Starting 2004.
Ray Charles starring Jamie Foxx.
Yes, and we want to hear from you. What was the best movie of 2003? Let us know. We'll read your answers on the show. You can find us at bestpicturethis.com, on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts.
Visit patreon.com/bestpicturethis if you would like to help choose a bonus episode.
Thanks to WNZF and Mark Gilliland for producing, and please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. That helps us reach new listeners.
Thanks for listening. Until next time, remember the best movie of 03, Master and Commander.
Kill Bill.
No question.